What's going on, everyone? I hope you're well and doing great. Thank you for allowing us to emit on Friday, getting together after a 3-day break. I'm excited to be with all of you. Obviously, today we're going to be talking about Ethereum, about its confirmed breakout. Jordan, it has not broken out to new all-time highs yet. Y'all remember? I remember back in 2020, the summer. That's interesting. We're now into August. Back in July of 2020, CTM live sessions, we were talking about the bull market breakout of Bitcoin right over here, July, probably right around July 20th, but over here on the breakout. We had the breakout, and then we had that hold your breath type moment into that red box. Breakout confirmed, resuming up. Sharp move to 17,000. Guys, risk is to the upside. No, it wasn't risk to the upside yet. It was moving to 14,000. Guys, don't take profits after a 40% gain on the breakout. This is not traditional markets. This is not traditional markets at all. This is, I was caught up in the comments. Flow is off today as we just get back in over here. Big shout out over there to Noah. This is, anyway. Rewind. What's going on, everyone? This is Jordan with Conquer Trading Investing. If you're new here, welcome. If you're not, welcome back. Guys, I put out an outline at the bottom of some of the subjects we're going to be covering today. We're going to be starting here with Ethereum. So let me go ahead and highlight Ethereum, and then we're going to move over to Bitcoin. And then as we move after Bitcoin, I'm going to take a look at what's going on in traditional markets, including the dot-com parallel, including that strong correlation I've been making to the 1996, 1997 bull market, 20% gains on the S&P 500 back to back. Then with that following 20% correction, and with a visual, with a nice new neat visual to help you all see what I've been talking about. Then we'll take a look at what's going on with our positions across stocks and Bitcoin and crypto. Ethereum, once again, obviously on the run. Bitcoin bull runs continuing. Cardano entering. We got a lot to get into and take a look at. Definitely did. No, it's a 3-day break. And you know what? It's usually by the second day back that I get into the flow, but I'm excited to be here. You know what really threw me off the most? What really threw me off the most was that I didn't have my pointer up after the restart. So I'm going to go ahead and let you sit all for 1 second at a very important chart. This chart is going to, you all are familiar with it. It's the rate cuts. And market is pricing in right now expectations that Fed's going to be cutting in September. And we have 2 to 3 cuts priced into the year right now. Now, I don't know that that's correct or accurate. And we still have CPI this week, probably the most important CPI of the year, because it's either going to go ahead and affirm the market's pricing ahead of the Fed, or it's gonna reprice it. Don't forget, we have Jackson Hole towards the end of the month. And then, of course, we have another non-farm payrolls and another inflation print before September's meeting. So a lot could happen. We'll have to keep track of it. But why it's important, because look at where it says, not panic cuts. Panic cuts are almost easy. They have to flood the system with liquidity. But look at the difference between 3, 9, 12 months out for cutting into a recession or cutting into normalization. Why go ahead and I throw up my pointer here so we can get going on this Monday. We got a little sound effects going in over here. All right, boom, and we're back. We're ready to go. I was trying to highlight this breakout over here, and what's neat about that is it happened in the summer, and obviously this is something that we were looking forward to, something that we were expecting. And then as it happened, again, you saw a quick 40% move up. A lot of people were coming from TradFi. We had onboarded a lot of people from stocks and from foreign exchange into Bitcoin, making the case for the bullish case for Bitcoin. And to see that type of profits happen within weeks was unusual for a lot. So I said, no, you got to hold. And we moved all the way towards 19,000. And then I personally was like, well, 30% pullbacks, they happen often. Be careful and watch out for one here. Price pulled back 15%, but then it faded it really quick. And once price faded that pullback, I said risk is to the upside. Sure enough, like a rocket. And then notice over here, the drawdowns start getting bigger. The reason I say notice the drawdowns start getting bigger is because right before the cycle top, you can see that here's the first one over here. Here is the second big drawdown. This cycle was a little different. It had two crises. What? The first crisis was obviously the global lockdowns. They're like, you will not even eat bugs. The second crisis was obviously right over here. And look at the massive Jordan. What was the crisis? Elon Musk is like, listen, we can't be accepting Bitcoin anymore. This thing is not environmental friendly. Threw the market for a whirl. And at that time, they sold, tested market liquidity, selling some of their Bitcoin Tesla. That was obviously, in hindsight, a bad mistake. Nevertheless, he was probably pressured by some I don't know what happened over there. So he had two little mini crises, but it was a much more immature market at the time than it is today. And you could see by, at that point, you had MicroStrategy making the case to corporates to put Bitcoin on their balance sheet. Fast forward 4 years, the amount of corporates putting Bitcoin on their. Remember us? We were watching that. We're like, oh, no, watch tomorrow. There's going to be announcements of corporate. No, it took 4 years, but now you're looking at that escalation of adoption taking place. And why we're in this sustainable channel, and you notice that the drawdowns are on average closer to 20%. There's been two outliers so far, hitting the 30%. But as you came in this previous cycle over here, 2016, which a lot of people see the resemblance as far as you could say, well, that was a sustainable channel. And then once it broke out to the upside, well, that euphoria wasn't sustainable. A lot of people are looking for that to occur right now in this window that we have ahead of us. We're watching it. Obviously, Bitcoin right now, we're trading at 120. Love to see it. Is not something that's unsustainable. I imagine as you get closer, if we were into the end of the year, be riding towards any point of the top of this channel, then obviously all eyes on similar behavior that's happened in the past is going to be very, very clear. And you could see it. And I could see a lot of people. I could see a lot of people like, they're looking to exit, and a lot of friends that they're making it known they're looking to exit. So we talk about that, and we watch out for that. And if at any point in time for me you break out to the upside, I've talked about, well, then that means that we're looking for accelerated price behavior, which is likely going to lead towards a reversion of the mean soon thereafter. Now, same thing on the downside. If you break down, that usually means that, oh, now we're actually going to be looking for a lot longer time for a repair, not for a repair, to recover, and the drawdown is going to be much larger. So if one of those two things happens, a breakout or a breakdown, that causes us to be looking for a different turn of events. But we maintain so far and thus far, continuing here strongly within the sustainable channel. I can't imagine anything that causes a breakout to the upside. I should be highlighting Bitcoin over here, but whatever. I'm just trying to, get back into the habit of having titles here for people checking in. The only thing that I could imagine that could cause Bitcoin to break out on the upside of the sustainable channel would be if we were to see something like the Bitcoin Act passed. The only thing I could see that would cause Bitcoin to break down on the downside of the channel would be something like a recession. So those are two outliers. And what are the probabilities of either of those happening in the next 12 months? I would say that the odds of a recession is placed, last I checked, I've heard reports of 18%, and I've heard reports of as high as 30%. And as far as the Bitcoin Act, I don't think Polymarkets is even betting on that right now. Now, it's usually when the odds of a recession are at zero that you have to worry. Coming into the year 2020, the odds of a recession for 2020 were actually zero. Sure enough, April 2020 marked as the last recession we're in, albeit very, very, very quick one at that. All right. Brum, bum, bum. I think what impacts the significance of the drawdowns has a lot to do with the maturity of the asset, in so much as that, like, over here in 2016, the people that were in this cycle were, I mean, I don't know. They're early adopters, right? You have like the tech enthusiasts all the way back over here. This is early adoptions, heavy speculation taking place. The market cap was significantly smaller, and some, like, let's call him like a tech mogul, like some like tech mogul out of the valley, playing poker at the table, and his friends are like, "Oh, you in Bitcoin?" He's like, "Oh yeah, no, 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 and I'm going to take a baller position." That affected the market in a big way. And today, some guy taking a $500 million position doesn't even move the tick, right? Like back then, it would move the market, and it was retail driven. And retail is obviously, for the right reasons, emotional when you see price do things like go 10 and 20x in a very short amount of time. And that sets up the Wall Street cheat sheet that you're all very familiar with. This cycle was a little different, and this cycle was like the beginning of what would be the institutions, GBTC, entering the fray. And then you had a lot of these, let's call them like Celsius and BlockFi, and then them thinking that they figured out the free money glitch, and them borrowing against, I don't say borrowing against GBTC, but getting caught on the wrong side of the nav, we'll call it, and getting really hurt. And then that was massive destruction. This was the let's say the intermittent cycle of when first institutional money began coming on board. And now it's very clear, prior to this cycle beginning, we had the approval of the spot ETFs. BlackRock is here. Wall Street is here. The corporates are here. And it's a way different cycle. And the thing is why for sure it would be certainly not only possible, but I would dare even say probable, that by the end of the session, you probably will wind up hitting the like button if you haven't already. But that, if Bitcoin were to experience something like a severe drawdown, I am sure that there would be corporate companies out there that would be forced sellers. That seems logical. We know that strategy was able to, withstand a 70-cent correction. It seems that they would be able to withstand what would be I personally think that we are seeing, and we will continue to see, reduced downside vol. The volatility on the downside, we all know during the bear market was 76%, which was less than the prior 84 and 85%. And going forward, dare I say, even in a recession. Now, guys, things could happen. Like the .com bubble led to the burst. So let's just jump over and get into a little .com parallelsness over here as we continue this conversation and try to tie everything in together. A 65% for a Bitcoiner is like, the first one, it's hard. Second one, yeah. Third one, what? Didn't feel, that's how it was. But, are we going to see a 65% drop? Do I think, personally, if you asked me, what are the odds of a 60% drop? Well, they're a lot lower. They're a lot lower. I don't want to, they're a lot lower. So let me just move over, because I'm trying to get into Ethereum and what's taking place over here. It's getting excited. And now we're seeing a little bit different of adoption, a major adoption driver occurring in Ethereum, as now the corporates have arrived, right? And it's interesting to me to see where Ethereum's kind of bottomed out has been pretty close to where we've seen QT bottoming out over here. And I'm noticing over here, ever since June, QT is down to a trickle. It's down to the slightest trickle right now, and I'm wondering when they're going to be getting rid of that. We've had 230% drawdowns so far this cycle. Jumping back, getting into, looking for a little bit of the .com parallels over here, and even a headline. So I was preparing the session over here, and then one of the headlines that comes through is .com parallel leads to a fear of what's next for this record-busting stock market. A headline's a headline. It's meant to draw attention. You understand, like, no big deal. Markets do what, though? Markets are like, it's a bull market when you're climbing a wall of worry. I saw a statistic that I took a photo of this morning over here. Let me just go ahead and highlight it now that I remembered it, because I wanted to share it with you. And it says that a record right now, a record share, headlines. I don't know if it's a record. Let's just pretend it's really high. Share of fund managers see US stocks are too expensive. Ever since the sharp rally since April lows, according to a monthly survey. Which monthly survey? 91% of the participants of fund managers indicated that American stocks are overvalued, the highest proportion going back to 2001. 2001 was after the dot-com bubble burst. This seems a little late. Those fund managers. You're going to listen to fund managers, or you're going to listen to retail? Who was the one who was able to go ahead and front run the move off the April lows? Absolutely, it was retail. But let's continue over here and looking at this AI bubble versus .com bubble. I know Microsoft back during the .com bubble, and over here in this chart over here, you see Microsoft 2000. They were making profits. They were selling operating systems like no one's business back then. I'm interested. I haven't done the research, and I'm sure it'd be pretty easy, but to see what kind of profit Microsoft was making back then. Apple was on the verge of collapse, so I don't think Apple matters over there. Intel was a lot of speculation. Like, everyone's dentist was buying Intel back then because they thought, like, something's happening here with this World Wide Web. I don't know what it is. Intel's selling the shovels. They're going to be the ones. NVIDIA, by the way, is making a ton of real money. It's not speculative about how much money they're making. And of course, that spending has been. I wonder, I saw Microsoft, the Facebook, Meta, to you new guys, Meta over here. But the Facebook has been spending so much of their cash cow reserves that now they're getting ready to open up credit lines to continue spending on AI. That's interesting to me. Is that a sign that we're going to see CapEx spending slow down? What's also interesting, and I think really important over here, is NVIDIA. I mean, so far, the earnings have not slowed down. They're not, obviously, the growth is, but they're still making legit and real money. That you just saw, the president of the United States made a deal with NVIDIA that now they can sell their chips. This is ahead of a trade negotiation meeting with China, that they could sell their chips to China, and NVIDIA will be paying a 15% tariff on those sales. It's expected to be this year $50 billion. So that was $50 billion minus 15% that NVIDIA was not expecting to have on their books this year, that it looks like they're going to now have on their books. And it's there. And Microsoft, we know, is booming. They're doing great. Bitcoin has no earnings. It has no business being valued at this. I'm just making that. People have been telling us that since forever. So is there a difference between what was taking place, or it's taking place today, compared to taking place back in 2000? Again, I'm sorry, I said Intel. Cisco was the one who was where my dentist was buying. Cisco was the one who everyone believed, there's something going on here with the internet. We don't know what it is. Let's go with those selling the routers. Intel chips, obviously, back then were the jam. So no doubt Intel CEO headed over to the White House as well. And I have a feeling that anyone who goes to the White House to make a deal probably walks away with one. You know, I feel like the Don wants to feel like the Don, where people come see him, they talk it out, and then they he wants that. So Intel back then for sure, but Intel has lost its shine. It can't compete with the likes of Nvidia, even Apple chips. I'm a big supporter of Apple chips and what they're doing and what's going on with what is it, the dojo. What's Tesla have cooking? When does Tesla play massive Anyway, I'm ranting over here. There was massive speculation about what was taking place with the internet. Was Amazon going to go out of business? Were they going to go bankrupt? Compared to this is real world earnings taking place, but they're stretched from their 200 MA. No, it looks stretched to me. It certainly does. So while we're talking about this, let me jump over to a chart that you're all familiar with. By the way, I want to get into gold and Bitcoin today. I hope we have time. If not, we'll just do it tomorrow. It's all good. But you know that I've been talking about coming out of the 20% correction this April, how closely aligned that this current cycle is, this current bull market is with the 1998. The 1998 is this one right over here. And they continue to just be like riding along with each other. But what's remarkable to me has always been that in much more importantly, both of them were coming off a very unique event, and that was back-to-back years, 20% plus growth on the S&P 500. It's only happened 3 other times in the last 100 years. So there's a lot, and now we have a visualization of that for you. And you could see over here how 97% correlation. You could see in black the 1996 into 1997 bull market, the 20% pullback coming out of it into where we are. And yes, I know this all led to a magnificent bust. And look, at any point in time, the markets could crash. I hope that we're there and able to recognize it once again. I feel like crashes are pretty easy. I feel like the reason that the meme was introduced, that the markets are not crashing, was to help people from their natural instincts of trying to look for that crash, that why it happens. We just had a crash back in April, by the way. Anyway, I think it's a really cool visual. I like being able to visualize what we've been talking about here for quite a while. And you can now see it pretty clearly today. By the way, you remember that we said, I remember, April 14th, today's the 11th. I wouldn't be surprised if we were at new all-time highs or a higher high. We had that big correction since. Here we are. Again, I'm just trying to make it through the end of September. Right now, we do not have favorable seasonalities. And my expectations are into the end of the year that we're going to be able to go ahead and be riding this well. Now, again, the Fed is or is expected to be cutting into the end of the year. And, we're going to have to watch. Are they cutting into, and it's hard to say. We've been watching the data. We've been looking for a deterioration in the data. Last month's jobs in the markets were certainly deteriorating. It's anyway. We keep going. Ba-dum bum bum. Let's move over. Let's get back into it. Let's move over and let's get into our positioning. And then let's go take a look at Ethereum. So let me move over and find out where we could bring up and talk about what's going on over here. We'll start in the CTM dashboard. And we have obviously Ethereum here riding its new open position, currently 16% into profit. Bitcoin bull runs remain in the market, 20% into profit. NVIDIA, speaking of 28%, Tesla's new position entering the market here this morning, up 2.8%. You love it when you take an entry and right away jump into profit. We're looking at FANG Plus, FNGU, currently out of the market. And you love to see it. T-Triple-Q continuing to hold over here, 38% into profit. Summer sessions, we're still riding the wave over here. IBIT, 3% into profit. And let's just take a look at what's going on as we move over and we see FNGU is pending long. If this closes at the end of today's session, it will be confirmed for long with the entry tomorrow morning, and MicroStrategy remains here out of the market thus far. So we're watching here today what happens with FNGU and whether or not we get that confirmed signal for an entry. And then moving over, you can see that Cardano's new entry currently just 0.5% going against it, and Ethereum here continuing riding that last position long. And you we could always get it. Remember the last 2 years, it was mostly Bitcoin leading in the market. Sometimes some uncertainty, both sides, even short on Solana, Cardano. Maybe Ethereum was long, maybe it was just out of the market. And now you're seeing Ethereum has been leading the way, and you could see that shift in momentum very clearly illustrated. Bitcoin bull runs continues to be in the market. Buy side boost, Ethereum's been helping out a lot over here, no question about it. And I'm trying to find my way over to take a look at where we left off. And check this out. So I know this looks like lines to all of you who are new. And I'm just going to go ahead and I'm just going to, you'll get it, but first of all, this sell impulse that we have over here, I'll start with this. On the breakdown, we've now neutralized it. We're trading above it. I'm going to remove it from the chart now that that's out of play. On that breakdown, we came right into what was our, I don't want to say expected, where we hoped we held, because if we didn't, it would have been a much better, much bigger breakdown, and hoping it ended over here. Anyway, we retested that twice. We had this bright line over here, and then I put out this lighter one over here, and I just wanted to see which one kind of was more correct. And very clearly to me, it's the lighter line. Why I say that, you see, you break it, it's fuzzy here, the break above the solid line. You wicked right into this line. At that point, it should have been very clear that's the line. And then you can see on the breakout above, you retested right into it. So if you remember back into Thursday session when we took a look at that, and if you didn't, now you know why. And then you could see that's just like a learning experience for sure. That was the better look at what was happening. Remember I said I didn't like doing that? And then I think that this line where we put the yellow line ultimately was a little too conservative, in so much as that, that was just much cleaner. Jumping back over here, I think you can get a much better view from a chart if I go like this. Maybe I'll get it eventually. That one we had over here was just wound up being very, very clean. And you don't know. And you it's managing risk with whatever discretionary, with whatever you discretionary determined. But I think it's very interesting on a regular basis to be looking at why you would do certain things and what the alternatives could be, rather than just feeling so adamant that you are correct. Well, let me jump back over here and show you. So, I mean, look, Bitcoin and crypto trade 24/7, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. We trade those in the 8 hours. So they're not waiting for the market to open. They're trading around the market cycles. The most volume comes into the stock market during the New York session. And there's a lot of, will equity markets be trading like easily accessible 24 hours a day for everyone a lot sooner than later? Yeah, already but the overnight volume is low. You could do that already on futures markets, and you could develop strategies that will trade extended hours or just regular trading hours. But stocks, they have their volume, and think about the amount of volume that takes place on the open. Look at Tesla's entry today, worked out today, and you could see that, you know, on the open entry, and then that momentum coming into the market. But yeah, that's because that's, you know, when the most volume occurs during 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 the US hours. That's what we're trading around over here. Trying to get rid of our positions now as we've gone through that over here. And now we're going to move a little bit into the Ethereum. There we go. Boom, boom, boom. Just a lot of people. So a lot of people right now are saying, huh, is the clearest trade right now Solana. Solana over here, by the way, how's that looking? We're still waiting on CTM filter. We're still waiting on ST1. We're currently out of the market. I wouldn't say it's a I wouldn't say it's a breakdown. All right, not at all. You gotta be worried when watch on the upside over here. So, nah, nope. I was worried about it if that broke above. It didn't really, just wicked above over here. I'm not reading into that at all. I'm just looking if Solana is weak, and I'm talking about Solana for a reason, because right now a lot of people are speculating that, you know what, like that's a bit of a breakdown right there. You could see the touch into here. You could see the touch into here, and then a breakdown that could easily be repaired, and it's a sharp angle too. You get back above there, and that resumed. Otherwise, there's a good chance we're coming into testing into this lower trend line over here. If that fails, that's a sell impulse, and then you're going to see a lot weakness over here. But Solana's been lagging, and if you look at the chart of Ethereum Solana, you remember we were talking about that breakdown, and we were looking at that chart. You know what that means is that I want to try to take a look at it with you. So why I don't have it, like, well, maybe here I could take a look with you. I don't think this is the one I wanted, but it doesn't matter. This is the one we got with. So this is probably Salana ETH, right? So let me go Salana ETH. There we go. Take a look at Binance. There we go. It is the good chart. And we were tracking it since the breakdown over here, and look how far it's extended. This was what we needed to have a repair on the upside after the breakdown. That's never materialized. And obviously right now, Ethereum is outperforming Solana by a wide margin. And we've had one recent long entry on Solana. We trade momentum. The momentum has not been kicking at all in Solana. It has been kicking very nice on Ethereum. And man, well, I guess it's, anyway, sorry, I was going to go somewhere. I'm not going to go there. But point being is a lot of people right now likely and are thinking, you know what? I wish I bought Ethereum when it was off its recent pressure, right? A lot of people are like, I wish that I was buying Ethereum down here. I really do. And since I missed that, instead of riding the current momentum, because maybe I missed out, let me go ahead and take a look at Solana, because I'm sure the next thing that's going to happen is that there's going to be corporates out there who are going to take positions of Solana corporate companies. And once they begin buying up, that's a lot of people are thinking that right now. I'm sure of it. And they think that's the easy trade. Ethereum, though, honestly, is we're seeing a major adoption event taking place, in so much as that we are looking at a lot of companies right now beginning to take their positions on Ethereum. And I think it's a total of, well, I don't want to think. Let me go ahead and tell you exactly what it's been right now. We're looking at total Ethereum held by companies with crypto treasuries has risen to 3 million. ETH worth $13 billion right now. And right now is where you're seeing an adoption event taking place. And because of that, you're beginning to see, and by the way, we've been watching the all-time high here of 4,800. You could jump down over here and you could say, and I should say, and I feel like I got this one wrong, which is why I'm bringing it to your attention right now. This was the breakout over here. And you can see it's slightly slanted, which reminds us over here of the breakout of Bitcoin when we talked about the summer of 2020. I didn't wait for the breakout of $19,000 to be like, that's a bull market breakout. And by the way, the bull market breakout was over here off the Adam and Eve bottom. And I said to you, we weren't together here, right? I put out a tweet back then, buy with his blood in the streets, but that doesn't mean anything. I said to you, we are going to make sure that on the next bear market, we don't wait for the confirmation of the like of the bull market. We're going to call the very beginning of the bull market 17,250. We called the bull market breakout in December of 2022. Since then, I didn't know it would continue. I've looked for an invalidation the whole time. It's never happened. It came close over here. If the courts did not rule that GBTC could be rolled over into a spot ETF, and then you begin to see the flow of funds front running and then into the spot ETFs. I think we could have broken down easily. That's not what happened though. Ethereum. No, I don't pay attention to Samson Mao. Isn't Samson Mao kind of like an inside joke or something? Like for the past how many years, like it was all the only headline is the God candle to him. Like I don't think Samson Mao is I don't know. Is that even I don't know. I don't know. Not me, at least, Robert. Um is this Ethereum? No. But so the truth is this, because I'm a Bitcoiner through and through, but the other like the Bitcoiners out there, let me pull up Ethereum. If you go back and you look in April, at any time you end the March into April, and you look at the Bitcoiners and the ones who identify as whatevers, the amount of Ethereum Bitcoin tweets was in hindsight, it was such a bottom signal. They were having euphoria about Bitcoin's move against Ethereum. And sure enough, right at the wrong time. I wonder if that will happen. Could we get to a point in cycle where the flippening of Ethereum comes into play once again? It seems like a regular 4-year event where all of a sudden Ethereum and the flippening and then is that also when that becomes euphoric at the top, or is it possible that Ethereum flips Bitcoin? I don't know. It could be. Yeah, I mean, it doesn't really matter. Anyway, jumping back over here, and this was the yellow line over here was this is my fail. This is where I mean, obviously, y'all and you all know, like, fail, Jordan. Like, what are you talking about? We've been through a trade basis all over riding this on the right side. That's not the fail, but from a discretionary standpoint and still like TAs for fun, I still want to, get it right as often as possible. And it was clear there was some like type of horizontal resistance happening over here. And then I think even last week we looked at it like this. And here's that horizontal. If you could follow my mouse, I know it's hard to see over there. It's hard to see for me, so it's hard to see for you. We barely traded above it, but really this was, and it's slightly downward sloping, and it's very clear. And we came into it, rejected hard, and confirmed the breakout above. Yes, we haven't made a new all-time high yet. And again, just over here, the breakout was over here. It wasn't after the new all-time high. And of course, we still need to make, or Ethereum needs to make a new all-time high. We talked about before what our expectations would be if Ethereum is able to make the all-time high. We were looking at over here at this deviation, this when you can see the resistance, the support that this was provided over here throughout 2021 and 2022. I think there's a good chance that provides some pretty decent resistance on the way up. I don't know if it should be black or green as a target. I'll put it red for resistance. And I think that assuming that this breakout continues to hold, and of course it might not. You never know. We got a lot of adaption catalysts definitely in play right now. But look at this. It's pretty steep over here. So my eye goes like, that's a good one right there. I'm going to leave that just so I can continue following in this conversation, and then I could always adjust it later. That's very steep, huh? Look at that. And right, if we were to break down from that red line at any point in time, that would be a sell impulse. Sell impulse would say to me that likely that momentum is going to continue to kick, that the drawdown is going to be steeper, and the time it would take to repair is going to be longer. Not that it couldn't repair, and that's why after a breakdown, we look for when the repair takes place. But right now, we are in the midst of a breakout. So that's where you're wrong. That's why we always look then to where we're wrong. And then you could look to what expectations are for the top side. And assuming that we're able to break out to the new all-time high, and it's just an assumption, doesn't mean that we will. But if we were to, and you know, obviously again, there's an adoption catalyst taking place over here. You have actual now corporates that are taking Ethereum, putting it on their balance sheet and looking to hold it. This is a new dynamic, and this, I could imagine, brings retail in. I feel like Bitcoin at $120,000 and people looking for the 4-year cycle to end, I don't really see any type of FOMO catalyst for retail. I don't think that matters. I don't think that, again, I've said it now for quite a while, like retail's irrelevant this cycle for Bitcoin. And everyone was like, what are you talking about? And I was like, the corporates are here. Look at the smaller corporates and their purchases. That's the new retail. Now I think that everyone definitely sees that. With Ethereum, though, Ethereum is a lot more like Bitcoin was back during this particular period from a market cap standpoint. And retail, I think seeing Ethereum $5,000 feels like, you know what? There's the potential and possibility for some upside. Now, again, I pointed out the Salana factor. No doubt some people a little bit early perhaps are going to be like, Ethereum, look what's happening. They're coming in there. Are there going to be corporates that come in and bid for Solana? You know, I don't know if there'll be one like Bitmine, in so much as that's attracted Peter Thiel. Peter Thiel is a abnormal investor. The guy's track record, whether or not it's the Facebook or Palantir or PayPal, is quite enormous. I don't think you're going to have someone of that caliber coming in to do that with Solana, but you will likely have some type of person or copycat that tries to, well, this worked for strategy. Maybe it's too soon to determine, but it seems that the momentum's going in the right direction, that it's now working for these Ethereum, Solana's next. But maybe not, and maybe way too early. And if you think about Ethereum compared to Solana, I mean, do you think that countries are going to pick Solana for their stable coins? I don't know. Well, I do know, obviously, Ethereum seems like a much stronger bet for me, but I could see this area over here providing some strong resistance. And on this breakout over here, ultimately, if we're able to make a move into that pocket, and I have this should be orange, right? I'm gonna put this orange, and these are where we did a video not too long ago, but a while ago. So I'm gonna see if I could find it, because it was a couple of months ago. And I'm just looking for Ethereum. It's coming up right now. Let's see where we go back. And are we going to get it or not? It should be right around here. I don't see it. I'm looking. Just one more. That's 2 years ago, Jordan. I don't think you're talking about 2 years ago. There's not too many. It's a long time since we've come back to the live videos, and we've been doing it. Anyway, I'm looking here. I can't find it with you. And we did a video on Ethereum right over here 7 months ago. So that's quite a while ago, 7 months. And in that video, these are the exact areas that I pointed out what my realistic expectations would be for Ethereum this cycle. And it's between these two deviations, into this deviation, into this one. And just to give you an idea, and I'm not trying to put any type of time frame on it because it's an upward sloping channel. If that happens by the end of the year, if you're able to hit that, that could be just below $8,000, you know, or if it doesn't make it and it, happens further, it could be, a year after that, that would be higher. That would be as high as $11,000. But that's the pocket of what I believe would be the expected realistic, I don't want to say cycle top, but the breakout target for this move that's currently taking place. You are seeing some different types of estimates over here, and you have some analysts maybe going crazy over here talking that Ethereum can now in 6 to 8 months hit 20K. And you have to wonder, by the way, that's a neat look, a Wyckoff bottoming pattern over here that took place on Ethereum. I definitely see it. You could see a similar target given to what I just showed you from our structural lines over there of AK, but making the case for a fractal to 20K in 6 to 8 months. I obviously I don't know. He talks about some type of channel, multi-year rising channel. So this is why I'm just hitting on that multi-year rising channel. I have to be honest. If I were a normal person and we were looking at Bitcoin back in 2020 breaking out, and someone was like, Bitcoin's 10,000. If you would have told someone, a normal person, that within 6 months it's going to be at 60,000, they probably thought you were crazy. Now, we did a video in 2019 and we said, in October 2019, November 2019, and I was so wrong. I did that video, and this video onboarded a lot of people to the bullish case for Bitcoin. And the expected target given was 55 to 130,000. But on the move in September, and sorry, in December, I raised those targets like way high. I thought we were going to break $180,000 and disprove diminishing returns at the time. No question about it. I thought my if you could give my best guess, I think it was like 230,000 that I put out at what I believed was going to happen. And obviously 50, something happened over here and de-risk down. That's wrong. $53,000 was a major breakdown of that cycle. But point being is, could that happen with Ethereum? I think this would be like why expected was used, generous, right? 8,000 would be generous. I think that getting above there would be very high into the end of the year, almost $10,000. But multi-year channel, and the top of that is over here, is 20,000. I don't have these expectations personally, but is that something that if you were to see speculation, so you have, when I say speculation, I mean actual like retail speculation, an asset that people might perceive as more attractive than Bitcoin. And obviously, I don't believe that, but well, maybe on a near-term performance, obviously it could very much outperform. But point being, going back to what happened in Bitcoin in 2020 and that move from on the breakout 10,000 to 6,000 in 6 months, that's a massive move, a 6x. And could Ethereum put in, a 4 or 5x, and whether or not the period, so 6 months from now, just to we're just playing, right? We're just playing. So we come into, 6 months from now, and could it hit something like $18,000? Something to think about. Fed is cutting, and the data is showing signs of deterioration. And in the past, when that's happened, that is signaling a recession. Fed cutting into recession, performance of markets moving out 12 months later, on average down 12%. S&P 500, expect NASDAQ to be greater. That's I have to, even though my expectations are one, if the data presents something else, I have to be ready for the other. And that's where the TE comes in. And you look, and I will look for where those try my hardest to get where the technical breakdowns occur. It's why when it comes to Bitcoin, though, that I say, listen, the cycle high is going to be a lot closer to 2028 than it is the 2024 halving. Because although I knew, like, I'm watching adoption, and I knew that it wasn't going to be a left translated cycle, as many others believed, I don't know what happens in between. There could be a recession, for example. And then if that recession were to occur, we don't know whether or not it's going to be long lasting. We don't know whether or not it's going to turn into some type of deflationary spiral, something similar to China's experienced. It's why I showed you early on in this period over here, and it's on the public side of the channel, not in the live streams tabs, how Bitcoin would not be immune to a recession. But I believe as we get closer into the 2020 after, regardless of what happens in between, we're going to be the cycle high is occurring over here rather than over here. Anyway, jumping back over, moving along, and yeah, it's a very clear expectations of what I see happening with Ethereum, where it's going. There is, look at the similarity. We were talking about 2020 and the breakout. I don't know. It's so, we've had so few recessions in the past, I want to say 20 years, because in the past 20 years we've had three, but we've had, in the past 40 to 60 years compared to the 40 to 60 years before that. I don't think that many people, there's no one that I know in 2020, 2021 was like China's about to enter into a massive deflationary slow motion train wreck. Even Ray Dalio at the end of 2021 was like, buy China, buy China, buy China. Now, I don't know if he was trying to look for exit liquidity or if he really believed that. But I mean, that's probably one of the worst calls I've seen in markets in the most recent years. And I don't know anyone else who was throwing up alarm bells about China that I'm even aware of. If anyone knows, please let me know. I would like that type of person as a vantage point, but I haven't seen that. I don't know of anyone who did. And the truth is that a lot of people are always looking for that in the US, but I guess that's the concern. I've said that's the one thing that keeps me up at night. That would be the worst situation. And now we have that almost illustration of what's happened in China. We could see it now and how bad it's been and how bad it was. Huh. A lot of people I put out a post over the weekend about the 4-year cycle, and I used this chart of ours as a way to do that, and I was showing this example from a different vantage point, and I was coming into something and I forgot it. Let's go back to the screen I was on. Maybe that will point it out to me. Anyway. Look at the difference here on this breakout. This is the breakout of this is the confirmation. 17,250. Previous cycle ceiling was our marker, which is all the way down here. But once you got the last break above trend line resistance, here's the break of trend line resistance. Look at the elevated move. Look at this move. The sustainable channel. It's going on now for a while. A lot more people are realizing it's going to come back over here and look at it from these vantage points over here. And, the length of it has been going on for such a long time. Adoption continues. I'm trying to put a hole in the argument here. I'm not able to do it. I feel like the drawdown over here during the crisis, during the global lockdowns, I mean, this one was massive from the run up from the bottom to June of 2019. Price had already taken a massive 50% pullback before the crisis. That was a 50% pullback. And then outside of Elon dumping the market, you know, I could argue that we probably would not had an extended. So only this one, but that was off such an extended run up. Price ran from 3,000 to 14,000. There's a lot of similarities to this particular cycle to this current one that we're in as far as the reduced volatility of drawdown. And I know that there were some outliers as far as these 40% drawdowns that took place. These two were late cycle. So prior to there, this is closer to 30,000. I know there's a few peaks over. The market cap, I'm trying to be forgiven. The market cap was a lot. It was significantly less back then. So, you know, obviously that type of volatility was expected, but there continue to be a lot of similarities between that particular cycle and this current one. I would think that this one, which was like the transition from retail to institutional, had a very much different nature to it. But I can't see anything setting this one off into an upward breakout. Upward sloping trend line breakouts tend to accelerate price behavior, and then a strong reversion to mean. Outside of a Bitcoin adoption event, we could look at the downside. You know, the price, if it breaks to the upside, that's one catalyst. If it breaks to the downside, that's another. We did just go through a major correction, 30% correction. And what was so bullish about that, obviously, was the ratio of Bitcoin compared to TradFi, specifically NASDAQ, with the 1-to-1. That's never happened before. It looks good, steady as she goes. There's not much else to say about that. There's not much else to say about that. Take a look at that. Is Powell's not transitory? Can you imagine Powell? I give Powell a hard time, but I mean, if he pulls off the impossible, which would be right a soft landing out of 2021, that's pretty remarkable in itself. There's a lot of things that puzzle me ahead. And one of those things is we are looking at, let's just call it a weakening job market now. At least that's what the data suggests to us. And I don't know how to reconcile the move into jobs that are replaced through automation. You know, do things that have worked in the past, well, is there certain sectors of the job markets that we should be looking at? Interesting questions. I guess I'm thinking out loud over here. There's definitely a chart I wanted to get into with you today, and that's this one over here. And gold and Bitcoin. I'll save it for tomorrow. Good session. Getting back into it here, you know. I mean, thank you all for being here. Thanks for dealing with this. So, even the momentary lapse there of the, you know, whatever. But Monday, summer sessions, first day back. Tomorrow we bring the flow. Thanks for being here, everyone. Lots of love. God bless you. I'll see you all tomorrow. Just look at CTM as the gold. What's interesting is the Bitcoin bull runs on top of gold on the 8-hour, catching a banger. I think so, but at the same time, this is so I personally don't believe in the power law in so much as that my expectation, as you all know, is that we experience something. Let me just try to do this. All right, I want you to just focus down over here. This is probably a better way to look at it. And you could see the hype phase over here. That's just the trend line off the hype phase. This happens to be the market structure of Amazon. You could see that this line here being tested twice over here. You could see throughout where those lines, and this is off of the close, not off of the daily where you see the wicks, is providing the structure. And what's interesting to me as it goes through hype and then facing reality, right? This is coming off the dot-com bubble burst, making it through 2010, and then Amazon becoming the largest retailer, the cloud computing and whatnot, and then it moves back eventually towards the top deviations of the hype phase. And the reason, so I'm going to come back to here now. And if Bitcoin is able to move back towards the top deviations of the hype phase, let me just go over here. If Bitcoin is able to come into the top deviations of the hype phase, and on the timeline, obviously, I don't know, but if it does it by, for example, if it did it by January 2029 and it comes into the top tier and at $1.8 million, that breaks power law. Power law has broken to the upside. And if at any point in time, Bitcoin does make the walk up, not to $1 million, if it takes like power law 2032, Bitcoin makes it to $1 million, right? I think that's correct. If it's not, just let me know. I'm just trying to always be as authentic as possible. Maybe I have the power law over here so we can look at it together. I don't, but we can look at it. We can look at it tomorrow. Point being is, I believe what's happening here is S-curve adoption. I believe it accelerates coming out of the adoption curve. I believe that we have the walk up towards the top deviation, as we've seen in so many different assets that have undergone similar adoption. If it does, power law breaks to the upside. The problem with that is if people are taking profits expecting that reduced volatility. And my own personal opinion is that reduced volatility takes place on the downside, but it's exponential growth on the upside. And it doesn't mean like it doesn't, not like that at all, which is why I try to give the image of this. There's no accelerated, like these are up moves over here on Amazon, like accelerated up moves. And, is that happening here? A little bit. Slight pullback, 30% pullback, continues its walk up. This is a big one over here. This is coming out, I imagine, of what happened in 2020, but I'm not positive about that. I mean, I'm pretty positive off of the devaluation. And for sure, if there's any devaluations of the underlying massive devaluations printing, that Bitcoin is going to see similar situations too, where it's going to make those bigger moves up. But anyway, have a beautiful day, everyone. I'll see you all tomorrow.